Today we're going to talk about making a start. I'm going to explore why making a start is often so difficult when we have a new project, we're going to start a new venture, why it's so difficult to get that going. I'll share with you a story of my own life that happened very recently about myself making a start and how I overcame that difficulty. I'm going to share some science that I believe helps to explain why making a start is so difficult. But I'm also going to share that same science that explains why, once you have started, it's easier to continue. Finally, we'll look at why making a start is so vital for your life and your well-being. I'll end up by talking about how to make that change in your own life. So this one's all about making a start. Welcome back to Finding a Light Within with me, Andrew Mark, the channel dedicated to helping you live your authentic and true life and become the best version of yourself that you can be. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. It does help to spread my message of hope and of help and of just getting the word out that there is a better way of life for you and for everybody else out there. Making a start is difficult. You're a million miles away from the end. You have this goal in your mind of what you'd like to achieve, but you're right at the beginning of that journey. And it seems such a long way to get there. There's no habit. You don't know, or at least your brain doesn't know what it doesn't know. And when you have a habit and something you do regularly, your brain is building neural pathways. And at the beginning, you don't have those. So it's hard to create any habits. Your habits are something else, the previous things you've been doing. And you have to break those old habits to form the new ones. The mountain can seem too high to climb, too steep, too far to go. But that's not really how winning is done, is it? Winning is accomplished by taking one small step after another. The trick is to begin and then to begin again and again and again. And that helps to form the habit. Recently, I returned to surfing. And although this video is not about surfing, surfing is my analogy for making a start. So I hadn't surfed for about 2 years, or at least not really. I tried a few times in between and just hadn't got going with it. And because of that, I faded away. It drifted away from my life. And the neural pathways that I built from surfing, the good habits I'd formed, disappeared. They overgrew again. And it was harder to get back to it. And every time I went down the beach with a good intention, I would look out at the water and at the ocean, and I had this psychological barrier. At the time I didn't understand it, and I mentioned it in my last video, and it was from my Hashimoto's disease, my low thyroid. And I was feeling cold even before I got in the water. And so I didn't want to go in. And I developed this psychology of not going in. But actually, the ocean is my place of joy and comfort. I love it. It makes me feel alive. And so I knew that I had to overcome that barrier. I needed to make a start. I needed to re-engage with my inner joy. So I did that. I went down the beach a couple of weeks ago on a Friday after work, and I just went with a mindset that I was going in the ocean no matter what. And that's what I did. I got down to the beach, I pulled on my wetsuit, I waxed up my board, and I walked straight across the sand, and in the ocean I went. And I only caught a handful of waves and rode them in on the white water, but it didn't matter. I had re-engaged with my joy, and I felt it, that pure sensation and elation when I came back out the ocean. I felt alive, and I felt that I'd finally accomplished something that I'd been missing. So I had made a start, and now the next step was to continue it onwards and make it into a good habit, one that I could do again and again and again, so I could keep building up my skill profile. So in those 2 years since I stopped surfing, I'd become extremely rusty. My skills had gone backwards. I found it hard to pop up on the board. I kept falling off. The times that I tried, I just kept falling off. And the more that happened, the more it became frustrated and the less I wanted to go surfing. And it fed upon itself. It was like a negative feedback loop. The less I did it, the worse I became. And then the worse that I did when I was back in the ocean again. And then that fed back on itself. And my goal just moved further away from me. And that created another impediment to me. So not only did I have the Hashimoto's problems with the feeling cold, I now had this other psychology of knowing that I was going backwards in my surfing progression. I couldn't pop up with speed and comfort. That something that had become intuitive from before was no longer so. And I began to overthink it, like I was right back at the beginning of my surfing journey about 7 or 8 years ago. And I spoke just earlier about the neural pathways. Now in your brain, every time you learn something, the brain creates a pathway between the synapses. So it fires across and it builds a bridge. And the more that you do that, and so when you revisit that same learning, you reinforce that bridge, that link. You build that neural connection. So the more you do something, the more easily your brain can get there. And I liken that to a pathway through the woods. If you've ever walked through the woodlands or the forests, you can see trails that people regularly walk upon. And where people regularly walk and regularly use the trails, it's clear to see which way to go. It's really easy because everything's downtrodden or cut back for you. But if a pathway is closed off for some reason and it becomes disused, then nature comes back and it reclaims that pathway. It grows back wild. And so after a certain amount of time, you can see where the pathway went, but it's no longer accessible. Or at least it may be accessible, but it's extremely hard to get back through again. And the brain is like that because it's a living organism. So when you don't use a skill, you lose the skill in the same way as that pathway becomes overgrown in the forest. It's necessary to create the habit that creates and builds that pathway for you. And repetition is the way to do that. You do something and you need to do it again. So why does my surfing story matter? Well, it's illustrative of a wider picture. Starting anything new is difficult and it is challenging. And if you want to begin something new in your life, you have to face that challenge and you have to overcome it. And although the end goal can seem very far away, it is achievable if you make that beginning. It's very debilitating to look down the road to see how far you have to travel. And that's why when you're making a start, you shouldn't look all the way down to the end of the road. You need to focus on the here and now. What's the thing I can work on right now that'll give me that step forwards? Because once you've started and you've taken a step forward, the distance you have to go to your goal is less. You take another step and it's a little bit less. That's how you do it. That's how winning is done. That's how we achieve our dreams and our goals in life. So why is starting so hard? Why do we find it so difficult? I've already mentioned the habits and the neural pathways in the brain. There's a law that Sir Isaac Newton, the mathematician and scientist, came up with, and it's called the Law of Inertia. And I think this applies to us, as well as physical objects that Newton was describing. The law of inertia, which is the first law of motion, states that an object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless acted on by an external force. So if you haven't started, I like that, or liken it to being an object at rest. You will stay at rest. It's hard to get momentum. It's hard to move forward because the law of inertia states we need an external force to change our situation. That external force, it could be willpower, but it's also acting. It's making that start. It's beginning. And this is why I like this law of inertia, to explain it, because the law also states that an object in motion will stay in motion. And that tells me that when you have made a start and you've taken your first step, you're now in motion. And so it's easier to maintain that motion forward once you've started. So that initial first step is always the hardest part of any journey, of any beginning on a new project. But when you've started it and you've taken it, you're on your way. And then the law of motion will help us to maintain it. And I think that's a really simple way of looking at it. And it may not be the way that Newton envisaged his law at the time, 350, 60 years ago, whenever it was. But I think that's or at least I know that's been very helpful in my own life, to think of the way that I begin and how it helps me to maintain my movement forward. So why is it necessary to make a start? Really, it's because your true happiness depends upon it. Your authentic self needs you to make a start. You have to begin to live your true life, the one of which you deserve. Every time we think of something that we would like to do in our lives, it does seem a long way away. I have this dream of sailing around the world. I sailed a boat or a dinghy in the south of France when I was 12 years old, during a school trip on summer holidays. That's the only time I've ever sailed. I have been on boats since. When I was doing scuba diving, I was on boats, but I've never personally sailed. But it always appeals to me because the ocean appeals to me. And I would like to make a start. But that initial step, that project, it just seems wildly too far away, out of my reach. But it isn't, because I can make a first step. And I've said to myself, my first step is to go and have a sailing experience and to test whether that's actually something I'd like to do, whether I do feel that connection of being on the ocean inside the boat. I can make sure that has meaning for me. And if I go and try it out, then I'll know that I can push forward in that direction. And that would be my first step taken. And that's not that hard to accomplish. So that's what I'm going to do. That's a promise I'm making to you that I will report back on as soon as I've booked it up and got my flights, because I plan to do it in Australia, on the Gold Coast, or at least somewhere around the Gold Coast. So I'm just researching that at the moment, and I will let you know whether I go ahead, and I promise you I will. Your authentic life aligns with your life force inside. I've spoken about this on previous videos, and I'll put a link in the description to that video for you. Your life force is that feeling inside, that gut instinct, the heart, the voice of the heart. And that's the true you. It wants to grow. You have to grow because you're a living organism. So your life force wants you to grow and be the true you. So starting any dream project ties in and dovetails with your life force. That's what your life is urging you to do because it holds meaning for you. It's the right way in which you can grow. And when you grow, whatever it is you do to grow yourself, mentally, spiritually, or physically, you are evolving yourself. And that is what life wants to do. It wants to evolve. It wants to be more than it is today, more than it is right now. That's what life's all about. You look in the natural world around us, that's what the story of life has been about from the beginning. Developing, evolving, becoming more complex. So we have to do the same. We owe it to the life inside of us. And when you live authentically, everything changes. You become positive in your life. You see the world very differently. Opportunities arise because you're much more open to taking them. And that creates the snowball effect. Once you begin your momentum, coming back to that law of inertia, you've got your momentum rolling forward, you will stay rolling forward. And the more you're rolling forward, the more possibility and opportunity come your way. I know that's true from my own life that I've lived and experiences that I've had. I ended up in certain places that gave me certain possibilities that could not have happened otherwise. I met people who gave me information that I could use. So momentum begets momentum. Change begets change. You have to make a start. So how do you make that start? One step, one is all you need. One step forward is one step less that you have to take on your journey. Each step brings new possibilities and unforeseen circumstances, which I've just talked about. Life will change. The law of inertia kicks in. So it's time to make that start. Think of the thing that you wish to do. Think of that project, write it down. Write it, make it become real. When it's inside your head, when it's a thought, it's not tangible. It's not material. If you write it down, suddenly it's tangible. It's an actual thing that you can see. Make it real. Honor it. Bring it to life. And when you've done that, make yourself a promise, like I've just done, that I'm going to make my first step forward towards sailing. Make your first step forward, whatever it may be. Do that. Because it's time to live your true and authentic life, the one that you deserve. Become the real you. I hope that was useful today, that talk on making a start. If you have found it useful, please do subscribe to my channel, Finding Your Light Within. Check out the website, findingyourlightwithin.com. And please leave a comment. I'm very happy to hear from anybody. If you have any ideas that you'd like me to talk about, anything you'd like me to explore in future videos, let me know and I'll look into it. And if I can, I will certainly do those for you. My aim is to help you. My aim is to help as many people as I can and to spread my message of being authentic, of being true, and living a life of purpose and meaning that's in alignment with your inner self, with your own life force. Until the next time, this is Andrew Mark for Finding Your Light Within. See you.